This film begins by showing two gang members named Bada who come to the Scissor Gang headquarters to introduce his friend, Bunsei, who wants to join the gang organization. At that moment, Bada and Bunsei bow down to the gang leader, Cha Uwon-jin, so that Bunsei is accepted as a new gang member. Despite being a woman, Uwon-jin is feared by her subordinates because she is known as a very brutal fighter. This stems from Uwon-jin's childhood, where she often hung out with delinquents, frequently honing her fighting skills on the streets. Not long after Uwon-jin accepts Bunsei as a new member, one of her trusted people, Majinka, receives a phone call informing him of the whereabouts of someone Uwon-jin has been looking for a long time. Without wasting any time, Uwon-jin and her subordinates rush to the mentioned location. It turns out Uwon-jin has been searching for her older sister, Eugene, who has been separated since childhood. They used to live together in an orphanage after their parents died, but unfortunately, they had to part ways when Eugene was adopted by a family. Upon arriving at the hospital, Uwon-jin finally reunites with Eugene, who is now suffering from terminal cancer. Uwon-jin is deeply saddened by this, especially since she is only now able to meet her sister after many years apart. During their conversation, Eugene asks Uwon-jin to fulfill her last wish, which is to see her siblings get married as soon as possible. Although Eugene's request seems quite impossible for Uwon-jin, who has only been involved in the criminal and gangster world, Uwon-jin decides to fulfill Eugene's wish within 1 month. When Uwon-jin returns to the headquarters, she informs her subordinates about her plan to get married to fulfill her sister's wish. Because of this, all her subordinates are shocked by their leader's decision. Since Uwon-jin does not have a prospective husband, she asks if any of her subordinates are willing to marry her, but none of them dare to accept the offer. Therefore, Bada and Uwon-jin's other subordinates take the initiative to go to a marriage center consultant to find a groom for their boss. In addition, Bada also calls a woman named Sherry to provide various training to Uwon-jin to make her look more feminine. When Sherry arrives at the gang headquarters, she immediately gives Uwon-jin a facial and hair treatment to make her look prettier. Besides that, she also teaches Uwon-jin how to attract a man. After all the preparations were made, Uwon-jin, who appeared more feminine, went on a blind date arranged by Bada through the marriage consultant. Uwon-jin's meeting with her potential husband's family seemed to go smoothly, and even the groom's parents were quite pleased with her beautiful appearance. Unfortunately, when the groom's family asked about her family background, Uwon-jin became confused and ended up using the seductive techniques taught by Sherry earlier, which led the groom's family to cancel the matchmaking event. The failure of the blind date made Uwon-jin furious, and she took out her anger on her subordinates. After calming down, Uwon-jin drove home, but along the way, she was harassed by two thugs. Because of this, Uwon-jin chased their car and rammed it. She then got out of her car, grabbed a shovel, and used it to attack the thugs who had bothered her. During the fight, a man named Kang Soo-il tried to protect Uwon-jin from the thugs, but his intervention caused him to be hit by a brick thrown by Uwon-jin. As a result of the incident, Soo-il, who had a head injury, had to receive treatment at the hospital. Bada then gave Soo-il a sum of money as compensation for the rough treatment Uwon-jin had inflicted on him, but he refused the money because he genuinely wanted to help Uwon-jin. When Uwon-jin heard the report about Soo-il refusing the compensation, she and her subordinates became even more curious about him. After some investigation, Bada informed Uwon-jin that Soo-il was a single civil servant who had failed at dating dozens of times. Therefore, Bada intended to match Soo-il with Uwon-jin. Before executing the plan, Bada and the others went to a roadside food stall and asked the husband and wife who ran the stall to pretend to be Uwon-jin's parents. After the preparations were complete, the matchmaking event took place, where Soo-il and his family met Uwon-jin and her fake parents at a restaurant. When Uwon-jin's side brought up the topic of marriage between Soo-il and Uwon-jin, Soo-il's family felt it was too soon to discuss it since they had just met. To help them get to know each other better, Soo-il's family and Uwon-jin's fake parents intentionally left Uwon-jin and Soo-il alone. During the meeting, Uwon-jin went to the restroom, where she was suddenly attacked by a rival gang disguised as women. With her martial arts skills, Uwon-jin quickly defeated the men. When she saw her attackers fleeing, Uwon-jin chased them until she encountered Soo-il, who appeared to propose to her while presenting a bouquet of flowers. This moment was witnessed by Uwon-jin's subordinates, who were actually behind Soo-il. The next morning, news of Uwon-jin's wedding plans reached Baek Sang-oh, the leader of the White Sharks gang, who had always been the enemy of Eun-jin's gang. At that time, Sang-oh planned to cause chaos on Eun-jin's wedding day. Sometime later, on her wedding day with Soo-il, Eun-jin was the only one who looked sullen, even though Soo-il and all the guests were happy about the wedding. During the event, Bada received news that the White Sharks gang had come to disrupt Eun-jin's wedding. Hearing this, Bada ordered his subordinates to stop them, but the White Sharks members had already reached the upper floor of the building, leading to a fight between the two gangs. Eun-jin was annoyed by the fight and tried to ignore it. Meanwhile, the guests, who eventually realized there was a commotion, thought the fight was part of the wedding entertainment. They were even entertained and applauded when a gangster almost fell and dangled from the railing. After the wedding ceremony, Soo-il, who was now officially Eun-jin's husband, looked happy, but Eun-jin didn't care at all until Soo-il started to tease her to be intimate. Eun-jin, who didn't want to, tried to avoid Soo-il by pretending to be busy in the bathroom, including scrubbing the bathtub, until Soo-il, tired of waiting, eventually fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Soo-il woke up and found Eun-jin asleep on the sofa, so he carried his wife to the bed. When Soo-il tried to remove her socks, she reflexively kicked Soo-il while still asleep, causing him to fall to the floor. The next day, the big boss, the main leader of the Scissor Gang, came to the headquarters to check on his gangsters after being away on vacation abroad. Seeing that Eun-jin was not at the headquarters, the big boss asked his subordinates about her whereabouts. At that moment, Bada tried to cover up Eun-jin's recent wedding because the big boss didn't know about it at all. Unfortunately, Bunsei blurted out that Eun-jin was on her honeymoon with her husband. Hearing this news, the big boss was shocked and angry because Eun-jin hadn't informed him about her wedding. That night, Eun-jin came home exhausted and immediately fell asleep in her room. Seeing that his wife was home, Soo-il intended to be intimate with her, but his intentions were thwarted when Eun-jin suddenly woke up and threatened Soo-il not to touch her without permission. Soo-il was frightened by Eun-jin's threat and decided to obey his wife's command. A few days later, Bada and Bunsei were seen standing by the roadside when 4 thugs approached them, seemingly challenging the 2 gang members. Bunsei warned the 4 thugs to leave immediately and not cause trouble with him, but the thugs ignored the warning and continued to provoke him. Seeing this, Bada tried to talk to the thugs and asked them to listen to his singing. Unfortunately, the thugs mocked his song, which prompted Bada to beat up one of the thugs, causing the others to run away in fear. Switching to Soo-il resting in his room, the man had not given up on being intimate with Eun-jin, especially after seeing his wife come home drunk. Even in her semi-conscious state, Eun-jin warned Soo-il again not to touch her. Unfortunately, Soo-il kept trying to force Eun-jin until she got annoyed and kicked her husband off the bed. On another day, Eugene was finally allowed to go home from the hospital after receiving long-term treatment. At that time, she was introduced to Soo-il and felt happy because she could see her younger sister now had a husband. That night, Eun-jin decided to sleep with Eugene, who again requested that Eun-jin get pregnant and have children soon. The next morning, Eun-jin asked her subordinates to call Sherry to teach her how to get pregnant quickly. When Sherry arrived, she gave various pieces of advice, which Eun-jin didn't fully understand. Upon arriving home, Eun-jin intended to be intimate with Soo-il and tried to practice the various things Sherry had explained, which left Soo-il confused. This made Eun-jin frustrated, and she ripped Soo-il's clothes so they could be intimate immediately. Since then, Eun-jin became more aggressive and always wanted to be intimate with Soo-il whenever they had the chance. Soo-il, who couldn't refuse, ended up complying with his wife's requests, even when they were in the elevator. Sometime later, Eun-jin's gang completed the construction of a new building, so they celebrated by dining together at a restaurant. Unfortunately, the event was disrupted when a member of the White Sharks gang showed up to cause trouble. Annoyed by the gangster's behavior, Eun-jin stabbed the gangster's head with a chopstick. This incident angered Sang-oh, who instructed his subordinates to arrange a meeting with the big boss. During the meeting, the two gangs agreed to hold a one-on-one duel between Eun-jin and Nun-mund, one of the top fighters of the White Sharks gang. On another occasion, Eun-jin went to a field where she was set to duel with Nun-mund. After preparing their weapons, they began to attack each other, showcasing their fighting skills. At that moment, Eun-jin appeared to have the upper hand, managing to corner Nun-mund. However, she chose not to kill Nun-mund and only injured his leg. After the duel, Eun-jin went to the hospital to treat her wounds and buy a pregnancy test. After that, she hurried to the restroom to check, and unexpectedly, Eun-jin found out she was pregnant. Excited, Eun-jin immediately shared the happy news with Eugene, who was back in the hospital. Eugene was also delighted to hear about her sister's pregnancy and reminded her not to get involved in fights that could endanger her pregnancy. In the evening, Soo-il, who was still at the office, received a phone call from Eun-jin informing him about her pregnancy. Soo-il was thrilled to hear the news and even prepared a bouquet of flowers for her. Upon arriving home, Soo-il was shocked to discover that Eun-jin had a dragon tattoo on her back, revealing that she was a gang member. Eun-jin then confessed that she was the second in command of the gang she led. Additionally, she explained that her marriage was solely to fulfill her terminally ill sister's request. Shortly thereafter, Eun-jin received news from the hospital about Eugene's deteriorating condition, prompting her to rush to the hospital to see her sister. At that moment, Eugene appeared increasingly weak and took her last breath. Because of this, Eun-jin was devastated by the loss of her sister, whom she had recently reunited with. Meanwhile, Bada, who had been dating Sherry for a while, planned to propose to his beloved. He picked up Sherry to go out together, which made her happy, and she quickly grabbed her bag from the locker at the bar where she worked. Soon after, while Bada was waiting for Sherry outside the bar, he was approached by the thugs he had previously beaten up. They came seeking revenge and stabbed Bada with a knife. When Sherry exited the bar, she was horrified to find Bada covered in blood, and under the pouring rain that night, Bada died in Sherry's arms. After that, Sherry immediately contacted Bunsei to inform him of Bada's death due to the thugs' attack. Upon hearing the news, Bunsei and his friends were enraged and went to the headquarters of the thugs, who were part of the White Sharks gang. Unfortunately, due to the larger number of opponents, Bunsei and the others were overpowered and beaten by the rival gang. Turning to Eun-jin, after learning of Bada's death, she prepared for a fight to avenge her subordinate's death, despite being pregnant. Upon arriving at the rival gang's headquarters, Eun-jin fought the gang members alone. However, being outnumbered, Eun-jin began to struggle and was eventually overpowered by Nun-mund and his group. Even when she pleaded with them not to hit her stomach, they ignored her and continued to beat her until she was severely injured. Just as Nun-mund was about to finish off Eun-jin, the big boss arrived with an envelope containing important documents desired by Sang-oh, leading to Eun-jin's release. After the fight, Eun-jin was rushed to the hospital for medical treatment. Soo-il was saddened to see his wife battered and having suffered a miscarriage due to the White Sharks gang's attack. This fueled his determination to avenge the cruel treatment by the gangsters. That night, Soo-il went to a karaoke place where Sang-oh and his men were partying. Disguised as a water delivery person, Soo-il managed to get into the karaoke room and poured gasoline on all the gang members. Unfortunately, just as Soo-il was about to set them all on fire, one of the gang members struck him, thwarting his plan. Feeling victorious, Sang-oh lit a cigarette, prompting one of his subordinates to reflexively light a match, unaware they had been doused in gasoline. The flame immediately ignited, engulfing them in fire, and Soo-il took the opportunity to escape. The end of the film shows Soo-il having become a gang member, ready to join Eun-jin in fighting against another gang. Moral lesson from the story: joining a gang to get married might help you find love, but don't forget to bring a fire extinguisher to the wedding. Because nothing says romance like beating up thugs with a shovel.